In my observation, us humans, we fuck ourselves up when we block our own connections within ourselves and then our connections to others, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
So what I'm trying to say here is authentic human conversation when there's two people actually talking authentically, sincerely, there's no blockages between them.
Hmm.
It's like a warm fire is created and everyone sitting around it gets their own warmth from their own way. And
Yeah.
that's where I'm very hesitant. I mean, there's a time and a place for TED Talks and delivering information, but
Mm.
to actually have a human to human conversation, I believe that will sort of go through space and time. Anyone listening to this in 100 years' time will still respond. If they're human, they'll still respond to that authenticity and that sense of, oh, here's two humans actually interacting how we're supposed to interact. You know what I mean? And there's just something there. It almost doesn't matter what words are being said. Almost doesn't matter,
Yeah.
as long as there's that genuine connection. Because yeah, I think we fuck ourselves up when we start isolating ourselves, start disconnecting ourselves, and we don't even know it. And so that's kind of
Yeah.
been my work in the veteran space for about a decade, just simply removing the blockages so people can feel human again.
I like you already, Tim. You're so spot on with that. Yeah.
Oh,
All
and
right.
this is it. We didn't invent this stuff. We just discovered it.
Yeah.
And that's, to me, when you hit a universal truth, it doesn't matter if you're in Australia or the US or anywhere. If we can align people into that, then they get that same kind of connection very rapidly, you know.
Hmm.
And when you're really kind of strung out, messed up, you have to find something that works. Uh, and what I like working with people with really strung out nervous systems is they're very quick to tell you if something isn't working. So you really have to find something that if it does work, then you're pretty sure it is a universal truth. Does that make sense?
It totally makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yep. All right, welcome, friends. Welcome back to the Inspired Yogi. This week, I am with Tim Thomas, and we're going to talk about one of the things we're all doing. Tim's going to give us some intention around it and help us do it better, I believe. So, welcome to the show, Tim.
Jim, great to be here, mate.
I'm glad to have you, man. So, hey, I think it's important to start off with sharing a little bit about your background and how this work started for you. Just makes sense to me.
Sure. Well, I never saw myself in this space. I was one of those guys that just loved achieving, performing. Um, I was a professional fighter for a few years, and then I joined the Special Forces. And
Special Forces in Australia,
yeah,
correct?
in Australia, yeah, Commandos. And uh, I was the oldest participant at 30 to do selection at that time. They all said I was too old, but thing about breath work is it's not just about feeling good. The younger guys couldn't figure out while old man Tomo, and these younger guys were fitter, faster, stronger than I was, but I
Yeah.
could keep going when these guys fell over, and they couldn't figure out why. And you know, without going too much into it, what I understood was your body's got a ranking structure for blood, and certain parts of you are more important for your functioning than others. So let's say your brain feels like it's not getting enough blood. It'll send a signal out saying, hey, I'm more important than the rest of you guys. I'm getting the blood. And it'll knock you out and it'll get the blood, right? And your lungs have a similar response. So unlike your brain, that's a massive muscle group. And that can take up to 1/3 of your total blood volume. So the performance aspect to that was these guys who were younger, fitter, faster, stronger than me, they didn't have a conditioned diaphragm. They hadn't worked their lungs. So they had 1/3 of their blood in their lungs when it got fatigued. Meanwhile, old man Tomo, they used to call me, could keep going. And that was because I wasn't as strong as them, but my blood was in my arms and legs, not in my lungs. So I got into breath work from the performance aspect, but then when I was in the special forces, I was in, environments where I was, beyond fatigued, and I discovered the rejuvenative aspect to breath work. and it got me through, the deployments in Afghanistan. And I should say it helped me sleep better through my deployments in Afghanistan, and it helped me sleep better when I was going through my divorce, which is a very different kind of war zone. And and the thing is, it's amazing how your mind interprets those things. I would have chosen Afghanistan over a divorce any day, right? But I'm just trying to point to the path that I've walked has been one of me finding something that actually worked in some really rough conditions. And I think if you have discovered a universal truth, then you have to ask the question, how do I give people access to that? And that's what I've been doing for a bit over a decade, working with veterans and first responders, but I've also branched out into the corporate civilian world.
Great, great. So I was under the understanding that you kind of figured this breath work out while you were in the military, but you had some background in it already then. Is that right?
Well, I was a free diver,
Okay.
so I knew about breath and how to control it and strengthen the diaphragm. I didn't know about all the technical side of things. It was all very practical. And then when I had this very interesting experience in the dirt of Afghanistan beyond fatigued, I discovered a principle in all of us humans, but I had to go to that place to discover it. And that was that our energy is like money. How we invest it's how we get it back. So it doesn't matter how much you... Sorry, go on.
Before you describe it, you're saying you were in a place. What can you tell us?
Oh, so I was outside the wire in the war zone of Afghanistan,
Okay.
on deployment with the Australian Special Forces. And the place I was in was beyond physical fatigue, because we're trained to work hard and go without sleep, but there's a whole other level of fatigue because you've lost your mates, you've seen all this crazy stuff happening. So that was, sorry, and thanks for asking, that was the place I was in where I was somehow led to discover this principle, because I said to myself, look, Tim, I was kind of giving up on life. What's the point, Tim? You've only got 2 cents worth of energy. You're going to die in this shithole, right? And then I'm like, well, Tim, if you've only got 2 cents worth of energy, you better invest that wisely. So you'd never get anything you'd call sleep, but every now and then you could get horizontal in the dirt. And instead of just trying to close my eyes, I would take that 2 cents worth of energy. And for some reason, I was guided to focus on my left thumb and picture a little pinhole in the top of my left thumb. And I would snort through my nose and pretend I was breathing down my thumb. I don't know why. I was just guided to it in that state of extreme fatigue. It was like something inside of my body took over. And so there I was with nothing other than breath and a bit of imaging. And eventually my thumb didn't just feel good, it turned into white light in my mind's eye. And then I pulled it down my pointer finger. And then I went to sleep, and that that 2 cents turned into $2 when I woke up. And I'm like, that's interesting. And then the next time I got horizontal, I got the $2 and I invested it in more breath. So I breathed it through my fingers, down my hand, up my arm. And each time I did that, I got more and more energetic capital. And I noticed, Jim, that when I was like fucked and only had 2 cents worth of energy, I didn't give a shit about anybody, because it was all about, Tim's hurting, Tim's world, everything else is annoying, right? But then as my energy and capital increased, I became more aware of things outside of me. And there came this tipping point where I actually started seeing the team around me, and I'm like, it doesn't matter if I'm having a good day. If my team is cooked, I'm cooked. So I did everything I could to sort of strengthen them out of my abundance. I didn't know breath work was a thing, so I couldn't really show them. It was just something that worked, right?
Yeah.
And so that's why I'm quite confident in recommending it to people, because it was sort of gifted to me in a situation where I had nothing, and it kind of turned everything around. And I mean, ultimately, I saw the difference between servanthood and servitude. Being of servanthood to others, I was confusing with servitude. Oh, you're better than me, so I'm doing something for you. But I was able to serve, the people around me from a position of strength, and that was sort of, I felt like that was kind of the why. I could see the why of why I had to be sort of so utterly destroyed to reveal, part of my purpose here on Earth,
Okay. So how many years ago was this that you
That
wrote?
was 2000. That would have been April 2009.
2009. So you've had a lot of time to think about this. How do you think that came to you? I mean, do you think it was reincarnation from a past life where you learned some breath work like that? Or, I mean, just the universe gifting you in that moment? What do you think?
I do think we have genetic knowledge inside of us,
Okay.
and it didn't disappear. It's still in us. We just, in the modern Western world, our modern world is so easy that our ancestral power often doesn't come to the surface. So I was in a position where I was beyond my own strength. So in that particular occasion with the breath, in the army, they teach you to take a sight picture and take a deep breath in and let it out, and then take up the first trigger pressure. They may have done a similar thing in the Navy, but I was breathing, focusing on my dominant hand. So I think I took the idea of that, but then for some reason I was breathing into my left hand and my left thumb.
Okay.
Yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, 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 kind of. So something that just kind of came together for you. You don't feel like it was from like a past life or a divine
Well, there was some funny
inspiration or
things happening there, though, in that space.
okay.
Like I literally heard an audible whisper. I've heard two audible whispers. One was in Afghanistan, and this was. Remember how I spoke about servanthood and servitude? Because
Yes.
when I saw my fellow brothers suffering, I thought, well, what can I do for them? I'm a private. I get paid to do what everyone else tells me to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I had a supply of coffee, and I thought, well, I can bring the guys good coffee. But I instantly realized in that very special environment of alpha males, if you do an act of service to another alpha who's not always secure, they see you as below them. And I
Mm.
knew if I brought someone a coffee, I'd be called the brew bitch.
Ah.
And I'm like, I've worked too hard to be here to get called that. Someone's getting politely knocked out. And it was at that point I heard the whisper, and it literally whispered in my ear, take the ego out of it. And I'm just sort of thinking that is this what it's about? What I have to do, take the ego out of it. And so I brought people coffee. I got called the brew bitch. But when you're living so close to people, Jim, in those environments, you can see how people are interacting. So I saw, another team, and alpha dudes, they are always, if they're not fighting the enemy, they're fighting each other. And so they were arguing, they were throwing shit at each other. And I go over there, drop off the coffee. Thanks, brew bitch. But then I step back and watch. They crack the coffee together. They take a sip. And then they rapidly take a second sip because they realize it's really good coffee. And then everything just stops. The noise stops. The arguing stops. The posturing stops. And you could see these really wide shoulders relaxing. You could see them sort of lifting their gaze to the horizon, and you'd see these big shoulders taking an automatic deep breath. Right?
Yeah.
For a second, they weren't in a war zone. They were back home in a coffee shop, having a coffee with mates. And I believe that whisper was there to have me just to get over myself so I could then get in the world of other people and not get in the way of what, if you call it spirit, what spirit wanted to achieve through me that I couldn't see. So that would, if you're talking about alternative experiences, that was one of them.
Fascinating. I love this stuff. So you mentioned two voices. Was there a second one that you heard?
Not in Afghanistan. The other audible whisper was on the day of my 25th birthday. It seems a pattern that most of my teachers are extreme pain. It's probably might just be how I'm wired. I think I have a lot of dopamine in my system, so for something to get through, I need to physically be a little fatigued. So the whisper I heard was actually the very first whisper I've ever heard, and that was on my 25th birthday. When I was 24, I realized there was something in my body that I couldn't see that was really, really unsatisfied. My body, I could see if it was hungry, I'd put food in it and it would be satisfied, right? But there was always something I couldn't see, call it spirit, unsatisfied. And I thought, well, if I'm going to really get into this, I have to focus past my bodily needs to actually find out what this spirit, unseen part needs. And so I thought, well, how about I fast? And I fasted for 10 days. Mm-hmm. And I thought at the end of those 10 days, Jim, there's going to be a big golden scroll fall out of the sky and tell me, hey, Tim, this is what you're supposed to be doing with your life, right? And so there I was. I'd worked 10 days a night shift, and I was on the top floor of the hotel that I was working at, seeing this wonderful sunrise, and I'm like, okay, this is the moment. And nothing happened. I don't know, maybe I was a bit entitled with all this, but I'm like, that was a whole lot of work for nothing. And I just had a real conversation with myself. I said, Tim, what do you actually know right now as a newly 25-year-old? And I'm like, well, I know how long 25 years is. I've got a concept of time of 25 years. And if you ask me how long I think it took, I felt like it went click of the fingers. So, Tim, when you click your fingers again, you're going to be 50. Mm. And then and I asked the question, what would that, if you were 50, what would the 50-year-old version of you say to the 25-year-old version of you? And so I'm in this really alternate headspace, just talking to myself in this moment at this sunrise after not eating for 10 days. And the 50-year-old version said, Tim, you've proven you can live with not a lot of money. You've proven you can live with people not thinking much of you. But one thing you cannot live with, one thing that would be a pain that you would not be able to handle, is live with the pain of regret. And I pictured myself as a 50-year-old with all these regrets, and it churned my guts in so many knots. I'm like, as God is my witness, I do not want that to happen. And without really knowing what to do next, I'm sort of up on this edge of the building, and I step backwards off the edge, and when my rear foot hits the ground, this sort of jolt goes through my spine, and then I hear this whisper. And it was somewhat benign, but I knew what it was referring to. It said, turn up 5 minutes early. And part of me was like, hang on, I fasted 10 days for that? Come on, right? And what it meant was turn up to training 5 minutes early. Turn up 5 minutes early.
5 minutes early. What does that mean?
So attend training 5 minutes early.
Okay.
And so because I've been training martial arts for years, so I turn up 15 minutes early, and I'm sitting there going, what's the point? But then I start staring at the mat where we're about to train. And I start seeing these images of me training how I want to train, doing everything the coach says. When I get fatigued, push harder. If the coach says 10 front kicks, they're 10 of the best front kicks I've ever done. And I'd never done that before. I just sort of trained. I'd never actually visualized something happening. And then when the time came to train, it's like my body got sucked into that mold. And what I'd realized, Jim, was I'd been training for years, but I'd only, in an hour of training, only 1 or 2 minutes of that training would I be fully in that moment, like mind and body connected. Mm-hmm. But turning up, 5, 10, 15 minutes early, focusing on what I wanted to do and how I was going to do it and seeing it and feeling it before I actually got there, all of a sudden I was mindful for the whole hour, 90 minutes. And that made such an incredible difference. And I observed that when our minds and bodies are fully connected, there's nothing we can't do. And there seems to be this gravity that happens. Things start coming to you from outside of your awareness that you never even knew. So when I started integrating that practice on the back of that odd whisper I had, I started pulling towards me the coaches that I really needed, the competitions I really needed to go to, the professional fight circuit, the life partner. These things just, I noticed that as much as it was high energy and it wasn't particularly easy to get into, if you could create that, all the things you truly wanted tended to come to you. The hard work was actually you being 100% in that moment. And that was my way of doing it. There are other ways to do it. People who surf get in that sort of flow state, mindfulness, but that one happened to be mine. And I think if there is a spirit, then I think it knew that for me to get over myself and get into that state, I needed that little prompt.
Fascinating. It reminded me of a book I read once. I used to be in sales quite a while back, and it was called, like, I think The 5-Minute Salesman or something like that. And it was literally, before you go into your sales presentation, sit in the car or wherever you are, take 5 minutes and just visualize the whole thing and visualize it going successfully. So it's kind of like the same kind of approach there.
Yeah, well, I think humans are humans. If something works for one human, as a principle, and the principle is, okay, we've all got bodies, they contain mass. Mm-hmm. In your language, I'm probably 190 pounds, right? And that mass is stuck at my time, 9:25 a.m. And it can't go back in time, it can't go forward in time. But us humans, we also have minds. And you can't put your mind on a scale because it contains no mass. But that's an obvious but interesting statement, because your mind, because it contains no mass, can go to yesterday. It can go to the day before. It can also go into the future. And so the point I'm trying to make here is everyone's got their own discipline or their own particular way to have their mind 100% in their moment with their body. And when that happens, that's super powerful, because I didn't know it, but what I was doing was, and the way I explain it is your mind, as much as it can go through time, it's got certain limitations. Let's call it a processing power, right? And let's say your mind has 100% of processing power. Now, like if I've got something in my past, it could be bothering me, it could be, something I haven't made my peace with, that could take up to 30% of my processing power. Taken up in the past, a background program running, I don't even know it's there, but that 30% has dropped me to 70% at 9:25. Mm-hmm. But I could also be concerned about something in the future, something that hasn't happened yet, and that could be taking up another 30%. So that puts me at, 9:25 at 40%, right? And life's pretty hard when you're running at 40%. So what I've discovered is if humans can discover their own way to get that 100% connection between their mind and their body, and a little thing that I've discovered is all your mind wants is stimuli. That's all it wants. It's like a kid that you can't keep inside your own house that loves sugar. If it doesn't get it in the house, it'll go up and down the street and lick anything, right? And I think the reason why you can have 100 good experiences and one bad, and you remember the bad, is because that's typically the highest stimuli, right? And if you haven't stimulated your mind for giving it what it needs, the stimuli required to actually be in the moment, it'll leave the house. So I think that's why your morning routine, you've got to give your mind the stimuli it needs organically through your own body, through whatever physical practice works for you, because then the rest of the day your mind's going to be like, oh, you've actually looked after me, you've given me all the stimuli I need, I'm going to work for you today, I'm going to be in this moment, and I'm going to be in the next moment, all right? And that's kind of the, I guess, a universal truth I discovered, I suppose. Yeah. Because when we are 100% in the moment, geez, there's nothing we can't do.
Yeah, it's amazing. I call it the zone. That's just something I've used to refer to it as, being in the zone. Now, so from special, all this in your past to through special forces, finding this breath work through the thumb, what took you to teaching and training others and doing what you're doing now?
Okay, so when I was really fucked after special forces, undiagnosed PTSD, family falling apart, I realized that not all healers are born equal. In fact, some people really shouldn't say they're healers. And I'm talking about, I guess, the mainstream medical people. What I discovered, my experience of it, and I'm not anti, counseling
Healthcare.
or psychologists, but nobody tells you that a good one's really hard to find. Mm-hmm. And when you're really hurting and you reach out to grab the first one available, that's not always the best one for you. And so I had a lot of bad experiences. I could have ended up in jail with the frustration I had through what I perceived as a medical system that seemed to not understand what you're going through and seemed to want to keep you sick. And I said to myself when I was in that position, if I ever get to a position, if I ever get through this and I get in a position to help others, I want to be able to have a principle to run off. So military people, they love acronyms. So my acronyms are 3 Ps. I call it my P test just for fun. All right. So everything I have to do has to be powerful. It has to be positive. But the 3rd P is most important. It has to be permanent. Mm. And that's quite the acid test, because if we say we care about people, we got to care about them tomorrow, the next week, the next year. So we've got to give them access to the powerful and positive stuff tomorrow, next week, next year. And the only way I've been able to do that is not have it about me. I'm a normal human, and that as energy is not enough for 2 people. But what I have mastered is a connection to something powerful. And it might have taken me 10 years to get that, but I want to be able to give it to others in far less time. So I started running these workshops, civilian world as well as military bases. And I got this email from a Louis Colonel who said, Tim, I've got reports from my corporals and sergeants that was the best workshop ever. Guys were saying that was the first good night's sleep they had in 3 years, 4 years, up to 5 years. And I'm like, well, why didn't you get me in 5 years ago? How easy was that, right? Yeah. But what he said next made me realize I was failing, and I withdrew from public life for 2 years. He said, Tim, it was good when you're there, but what have you got when you're not there? And I'm like, shit, I've just failed my P test. I'm not permanent. And so, and again, I'm not the powerful one in this scenario. Your breath is. So how do I give people permanent access to the most powerful thing in the room, which is their breath? And how do I do it easily and effortlessly? Because people are busy enough. They don't want an extra 6 things to remember, going to sleep. They just want to go, here's what I want, take care of it for me. And so I withdrew from public life for 2 years, spent tens of thousands of dollars of my own money to create Breathwork in bed with, you know, an app that simply asks when you want to sleep, when you want to wake up, and we take care of the rest. So I always thought that if I wanted to eat healthy and I had it set up on my phone that Uber Eats would deliver the healthiest food exactly when I needed it, you know what, I'd probably start eating a whole lot healthier. And so that's what I wanted to create with Breathwork in bed, the Uber Eats of Breathwork. It's not that people can't breathe, but we just need it at that time when we really need it. And if we can have that experience that's easy and effortless as we're going to sleep, as well as when we're waking up, when the two times that a lot of people struggle, then I feel like I can feel satisfied that that's my best effort at making permanent access to something that's, you know, really powerful and positive.
I love that. So please share more about your app.
It's pretty much it. You tell it when you want to sleep, when you want to wake up. We take care of the rest. People are busy enough, you know, and I was so freaking tired of people saying, oh, you just need to sleep more. You just need to sleep more. I'm like, I know that, but what can I actually do about it? So that's why, again, I made Breathwork in bed, that it falls out of your phone with notifications. It's literally just a 2-button click. And you get to turn your bed into a cloud literally tonight. Waking up, I don't tell people to get out of bed. I say stay in bed, do a few minutes of breath work, and this particular breath work will actually activate the system, remove the blockages from however long you've been asleep. And I've noticed that if I lost the first 5 minutes of the day to negative self-talk, man, it was really hard to get out of that state. And I just thought it was normal feeling like crap for the first few hours of the day. Like I really didn't want to be on this planet type crap. But if I could just stay in bed, do that breath work, if I could win the first 5 minutes of the day, I would win the day. And I thought, well, I'm dyslexic. I see things in patterns. And I'm a bit lazy too. So I always think, what's the minimum investment to get the maximum return? And I saw that our bodies, and the state that we're in has 2 golden 5-minute windows every day. The 5 minutes going to sleep and the 5 minutes waking up.
Theta state, yeah.
Yeah. And most people, without knowing it, poison those times. Racing thoughts, negative thoughts. The veterans often talk about having negative vultures on the bedhead ready to swoop into your brain when you first wake up. So I thought, if I can just perfectly drop in a 2-tap breathwork session that specifically targets them to have an amazing night's sleep, and then specifically targets them in the morning to win that first 5 minutes, then we have a reasonable chance at having a massive return. Those 2 5-minute windows for a 23-hour return, as you know, on a good day. Yeah.
That's perfect. Now, does the app, is it like an alarm? Does it wake you up and then start taking you through the breath work, or do you have to wake up and push the button?
So notifications, some people wake up because it goes ding, but what usually works is you set your alarm for when you want to wake up, okay. And when you hit that, you'll see your notification there for the breath work in bed. Then so you hit your alarm, tap the notification, press play, and then you can stay in bed. And even today, even though I know this works, I'm blessed that when I wake up, I often feel like crap, right? And I'm saying that's a blessing because every morning there's a part of me saying, as I'm doing my breath work, this is bullshit. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. There's that part of me that wants to stay negative, talking me out of it. So I have a real empathy and lived experience. So it really has to work. Otherwise, I'm not going to put my name to it. So every morning I'm thinking, this is bullshit. But percentage by percentage by percentage, bit by bit by bit by bit, after a few minutes, I'm like, wow, this actually works. So to me, it's a daily thing. You can't just hit this and quit this. Every day you sort of have to clear out those blockages so you can have a fresh new day.
Yeah. Who did you first share this app with? I'm curious to kind of experiment with it.
Well, it came from when I was getting divorced, lost house, home, money, regular access to kids, sleeping on the couch of my parents' place. And you can imagine I wasn't sleeping that well.
No.
And at 2 a.m., I had all this like war zone going off in my head. But the irony, Jim, was I knew about breathwork. I knew breathwork would actually give me the peace and connection I'm looking for. But I could not do it. The state I was in had me so locked down. And so what I saw in that moment, Jim, was your mind's like a garden. Whatever you water grows. And I was watering the weeds of stress. And the weeds of stress were loving it. They pretty much took over the whole garden. And they don't just take over the garden. Eyeballs pop out of these things and they become sentient. They become aware. These little fuckers become aware of the things that you do that feed them. And they become aware of the things that you do that might starve them. And they're so controlling. They had me locked down so hard that even though I knew I was supposed to do actions X, Y, Z, I could not. Right?
Yeah.
If like an easy example is before you do some form of exercise, there's always a part of you going, let's not do this now, let's do this later, let's look at our phone, because the disempowered parts of you know that if you exercise and you become fully empowered, then they're gone, they're kicked out. And those disempowered parts of us scream the loudest before they die. All right, and they give us a feeling that you're going to die if you do this. They try and trick you out of it. So there I was, 2 a.m., stress weeds, loving what I was doing, had me so locked down. And I get up, I'm about to do alcohol, drugs, self-harm, and I just look at my left thumb. And I say, Tim, you can take one breath, take one fucking breath. And I drove this thumb into my chest and went, and it was like the first breath coming up from the bottom of the ocean. I'm like, this is working, take 2. I took my second finger, drove it into my chest. Okay, this is good, take 3. Get to 5. And so finger by finger, breath by breath, and then somewhere between breath 15 and breath 25, the chemical override happened. The stress weeds got kicked out. The rest of my brain came online, said, Tim, thank fuck you kicked those guys out. This is working. Don't stop. That night I learnt 2 things. You can't think your way out of these things, but you can breathe your way out. But breath work does need to be guided. I needed an external focus point. And I didn't want to be just stabbing myself in the ribs with my thumb. So I started making these stupid recordings going, hey, Tim, breathe in, breathe out. And ancient army saying, if it's stupid and it works, it's not stupid, right? So I made these stupid recordings. They kept working. I shared them with my friends. It worked for them. And it wasn't just getting me to sleep, and it wasn't, and it was getting me back to sleep at 2 a.m. But then I thought, well, how about we give a boost to the morning as well, right? Because I got a lot of chronic injuries from the army, a lot of chronic pain, and breath was anti-inflammatory. There was a lot of benefit in that as well. So I saw the power of it. I saw that it worked with others. And then when that Louis Colonel said, what have you got when you're not there? I'm like, well, how do I give people access to that? I don't like phones, but everyone's got one. Yeah. And if I can have them accessing, the most powerful part of them through their phones, then I think that would be considered a win. So that was the birthplace of the idea, the understanding the power of it, the understanding that there's resistance when you need it the most, and having it there as a push-button experience. That was the the groundwork behind the intention of making it giving anyone anywhere on the planet access to medicinal breath. Yeah.
It passed the P test.
Ah.
I like it. I'm curious. Do you know how many people are using the app?
We've. I don't think we're past 1,000 yet. We're still starting off. Although
Okay.
quite a few success stories in that.
Yeah.
My LinkedIn's blowing up because there was a rather well-known US veteran who wasn't getting any sleep. Now is actually sleeping, and
Okay.
that's doesn't sound like much to say that out loud, but to
No.
actually understand the amount of pharmaceuticals get thrown at veterans, especially, and everyone as well. And I'm a guy that lost many years of his life to pills because he goes, I didn't know the exact power of breath work, right?
Yeah.
So just to have people when they try it and it actually works means so very much for me. And I've always thought, we are one big marketing push away from, having a lot of subscribers. But the point is, I'm hand on my heart can say, look, I've actually got something that does what it says it's going to do.
Hmm.
Because when people are hurting, they often don't know who to trust, and the marketers out there overpromise and underdeliver. And I thought, well, I want to make something that I know works consistently, and so I can honestly say the people that are using it are actually not just improving their sleep. Often their family notices the difference in them as well.
Sure.
And that means a lot too. So you're not just helping one person, you're helping, their whole circle.
Yeah.
I even had one guy, his name was Chris Thompson. He was an insomniac for over 30 years. And I prescribed him some breath work, and I checked in 8 days later. And he says, Tim, for the last 8 nights, I slept solid. The only time I woke up was when the dog was barking. And that was just breath work. There was no pills. And now this guy, he's training, Chris is now training to be the world's fastest triathlete.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Over 60, because
Over
he's
60.
over
Wow.
60. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
So
right.
I don't have the size that I would like just yet, but I am glad that I'm fulfilling on my intention of A, it's got to work, and B, people need permanent access. Yeah.
Right, right. This is fascinating because it's coming right on the tails of a sleep expert that I just had on maybe 2 podcasts ago, talking about the importance of sleep. I listened to Gary Bareka, who talks about longevity, and he talks about how important sleep is for longevity. And now here's an app that can help you sleep. So this is like perfect timing, Tim.
Well, it's really frustrating. Okay, I'll share my story. I was
Okay.
frustrated as hell because everyone was saying, "Hey, you just need to sleep. You just need to." Like, I know. Well, what can I do, right?
Yeah.
So I didn't want to be those people to talk about the importance of it. I wanted people to go, "Well, here's something you can try, immediately."
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, there's a tool that helps you sleep that's easy to use, you know, and helps you throughout the day because you wake up and you use that tool again. I mean, that's fabulous. So I
Look, and
appreciate what you've done.
there's a few little bonus features that I mean, I feel like we're in a flow state here, so I'll share the being dyslexic, I see things in patterns, and I've noticed energy has a certain pattern to it. And when energy starts connecting, it wants to connect to more things, right? But when it starts disconnecting, it wants to disconnect from more and more and more. So there's no holding ground. You're either making more connections with more energy or breaking off connections and creating less energy. And once, let's say someone chooses to do the app, they're going to sleep really well, they're waking up with breath, winning the first 5 minutes of the day. I didn't want to just leave it with a physical experience. So in the wake up routine, there's what's called mirror work, where you stand in front of the mirror and you say these positive affirmations 3 times to have your mind lined up and connected the way it really works for you. And again, this is sort of in the realm of if it's stupid and it works, it's not stupid. Because I remember standing in the mirror saying these things. I'm like, this is so stupid. But then it just kept on working. It kept on working and it kept on working. So I'm like, well, I have to include this because it's free, right? You're just saying words coming out of your head to a mirror. And there was just this powerful impact. So the app doesn't just give you a good sleep and a good waking. It connects your mind. But then it asks this question. Because energy wants to connect more. Would you like to double the energy and connection you're currently feeling? Because you connecting to your body, your breath, your mind, that's half the connection. We're meant to, as humans, connect to others. So consider doing an act of generosity to someone you care about. Or a complete stranger. It doesn't have to cost you anything. My favorite thing is just sending 3 words to a few different people in the morning. Good morning, Jim. That's it. Hey, Tim's thinking of me this morning. Yeah, good morning, mate. You know, connecting outside of ourselves, some act of generosity just doubles the energy that you've got here and now.
I love that, by the way. That's such a great little thing to do. And it doesn't cost you a cent.
Well, and in the app itself, we do have this little area called the Generosity News Wall, where people post their acts of generosity. It's really, really simple stuff. But the thing about generosity, as I've observed, is it's not just good for you, good for the person. Anyone observing that has a massively impacted experience as well. And as someone who I don't like listening to mainstream media, because I think it's actually there to put you into your amygdala, into your fight or flight, into thinking that resources are scarce and I've got to protect myself. So, you know, remember how I said energy is either expanding or contracting? My experience of mainstream media is it just contracts everybody, brings you down to zero. And when you feel like you're in your amygdala, you're paralyzed and polarized. You know, vote red, vote blue. That's kind of what happens when you're in your amygdala, when you're outside of that highly connected executive function. So where was I? Oh, yeah, generosity. Yeah, yes. So on the Generosity News Wall, you have people going, you know, I wanted to hear that, you know, Tom from Timbuktu took his neighbour's bins in. You know, Sean from Alaska took his mum shopping. These things... because people forget, like, good people are everywhere, and a little bit of encouragement goes a hell of a long way. So if we and no one's gonna do this for us. You know, we have to be the ones to choose the state that we want to be in. Because if what I did for years was I didn't choose, I would low energy state would end up getting exploited. I've got to have a coffee. I've got to have an energy drink. I've got to have these pills to sleep. I've got to have these pills to wake up. Everything's a threat. I've got to take advantage of someone else before they take advantage of me. Resources are scarce. And I think if you look at a consumer society, if you had a group of people that were sleeping well, knew their value, invested in themselves and invested in others, and you had another group of people that weren't sleeping well, didn't know their value, and depended on external validation, who would buy more crap they didn't need? You know, and who would believe shit they probably shouldn't believe? Who would listen to people that were trying to polarize and paralyze them? You know, this is the kind of, if we don't choose this, the choice kind of gets made for us. So in many ways, there is no choice. Like if we don't choose to put the state in that we want, that choice gets made for us. And that's me being about as brutally honest with my own observations. And that's why, you know, it doesn't have to be a hard thing. People are busy enough. But if you can truly, if all you had to do was focus on your breath, going to sleep and waking up to get a massive return on that investment, would you actually do it?
Right. Yeah, makes total sense. You're a smart man, Tim. And I've loved this podcast. I've loved this conversation with you. I want to give you an opportunity. We're getting in close to the end of the hour here. If there are any final thoughts you want to share?
In my goal of permanency, I'd love to show everyone a little breathwork technique because we've blah,
Absolutely.
blah, blah about breath. But how about we just give somebody something so they can actually
Yeah.
run with it? So if, do whatever you want after that. Forget everything we've said. If you can remember this, then you're going to be set up powerfully and you're going to have something that you can potentially be using for the rest of your life.
I love it.
Is that cool? Do we have time
Love
for
it and
that?
appreciate it. Yeah, totally.
All right, sweet. So everything's an invitation. Breath is easy, but because we're doing it our whole life, we do need to give ourselves permission to receive it fully, right? And the invitation to you, Jim, and anyone listening is, do you give permission to your very own breath to make every single cell in your body feel really, really good?
Absolutely. I give the permission.
Fantastic. Do you give permission to your own breath to make your conscious thinking mind feel really, really good?
I give that permission to the breath. Yes.
Awesome. Do you give permission to your breath to make your unconscious mind feel really, really good?
I do give that permission to my subconscious mind, or to the breath to make the subconscious mind feel really, really good. Yes.
Awesome. And this is going to be so easy, you're going to be surprised. So all we're going to do is just breathe in and then breathe in more. Now hold it and just wriggle your shoulders, wriggle your arms, wriggle your shoulders, wriggle your arms, wriggle your shoulders like you're in bed. And I want you to let it out with a really loud sigh. Out. And just breathe through your nose and let that energy circulate. That is your energy. No one did that for you. I didn't do that for you. I'm in Australia. This is you doing for you right now. And that energy you're feeling, sometimes you feel it going through your whole system. This is your sovereign energy. And if you're open to it, I'm going to build on that.
Sure.
So this time when we breathe in, a lot of people don't know that in their two fingers and their thumb, they have power buttons. And when you pinch them together, if you're listening to this, what I've got is my two fingers up and I pinch them down on my thumb. And we're going to hit those when we inhale. And when we inhale, we're going to raise our nose. Okay?
Okay.
So everyone have their power
Slight
buttons
back
ready?
bend there. Looked like you were doing a slight back bend.
Yeah, so a slight back bend, raising your nose kind of raises your back bend because we're targeting the top third. I want everybody, when they're breathing in right now, to target their top third. There's a reason for that. I'll talk about it in a bit, but we want to really inflate our top third by hitting these
third of
two
the
power
lungs.
buttons. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So if you're ready, I'll invite everybody just to blow it all out to start with. Blow it out. And then start breathing in. Hit those power buttons. Look up. In. Again, now wriggle it. Feel like you're in bed, wriggling it, pushing it around the place. And I invite everybody to let out a nice, loud, audible sigh. Breathing through the nose. And again, just bask in your own sovereign energy circulating right now. That is your breath, your energy. You have access to this at any time you want. And while you're there, just letting that energy circulate, just grab your fingers and pinch, and just notice how when you pinch those fingers, you can really boost your inhale, even in a gentle way. So just notice how that pinch can boost this top third. Okay? And I want to do a little activity that is going to allow us to use our breath to help us stay centered and plugged in. We're going to exhale. We'll have our power buttons ready. We're just going to hold on the exhale and wait until something mildly annoying, and this is, we lift light right now, very, very mildly annoying, okay? Once that mildly annoying thing is in our mind, I want you to pinch and rapidly inhale through your nose. Behind our nose, we have these sinuses, and I want you to suck that air as fast as you can over your sinuses, like really as fast as you can, like you're almost trying to suck air through to that air sort of goes through your head, through your brain, to suck that thing and blow that thing out of your head. You got that?
Yep.
All right. So we're going to exhale, hold, think of something mildly annoying, and once we have that thing, I want you to do the most rapid inhale you can. Okay, now wriggle that thing to the surface. That thing that's annoying you is stuck in your body. Wriggle it up, wriggle it up, wriggle it up. Push it to the surface, push it to the surface, push it to the surface. Cover your mouth and let out a really loud yawn. Loud, 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 loud. Out, out, out. Push it out, push it out. Arrgh! Okay. And just, again, feel that space that's opened up. Okay, you removed a blockage. You replaced it with air. You breathed air through your sinuses, through your brain. You wriggled that tension out of your physical system, and then we released it with a sound. Okay? Sound is frequency. It's a vibration. Mm-hmm. And if I was to ask on that thing that was mildly annoying to you, Jim, is it still hanging around at all?
No, I don't feel it now.
And this is a very simple technique, but I used to have to drink a lot of alcohol to get the effect that we're having right now. A lot of pills. And so through my day, when things annoyed me, I would just think it's normal. And then at the end of the day, those little things would accumulate and I had to drink half a carton of grog. So now, as I'm walking down the street, I'm a human, things annoy me. So whenever something annoys me, I will discreetly in public snort, wriggle it, and let it out. And wash that thing off. Okay? Clear myself. Be that sovereign individual. Otherwise, I'm just accumulating like a handful of gravel in the backpack, another handful of gravel in the backpack. But if we can use our... And I only breathe like that if I pinch my fingers. That triggers the response to breathe properly. So if, Jim and I have had an authentic, wonderful, fire-warming conversation. But if you're walking away from this and you want to have something that you can potentially have for the rest of your life as long as you're breathing, this little activity, I'd feel very confident gifting to you, so you can integrate this into your daily practice. And who knows, you might come across someone else who needs to self-regulate, and you can show them the very same thing, and they might have a very similar experience.
Beautiful. You're changing the world, Tim, one breath at a time. Well, I appreciate you sharing, and I appreciate you taking us through that breath work. That was awesome. Awesome. We've reached the end of the show here, so I want to thank you again for being a guest. It was delightful, and I wish you and the people that use your app a lot of success in getting people to use the app, and success for those people that are using it to sleep better.
Thanks, Jim.
Yeah, thank you.